So today's focus on the on our time is going to be actually the listing and marketing consultation. And a lot of times we call this the listing presentation, and which it is. That's what it is. That's when you're getting together with somebody and wanting to, this is when they want to list the home. It had been brought to my attention. People said, hey, Rob, this looks great, but how do I walk somebody through it? So that's what we're going to take the time to do. So at the beginning, you know, this is the opening. And I a lot of times I like to point things out. Now, I'm going to tell you, many times when you bring things to an appointment, it is almost just the credibility pieces, and you give it to them and it never goes any farther. For instance, there's a lot of times I've had people present me with stuff, like when I had, we had our whole home, a whole brand new HVAC system put in about 4 years ago. And when they did that, you know, they had all this presentation stuff there. That's lovely. I think I looked through only some of it because some of it is just the credibility, you know, and sometimes too, there's stuff in there like, oh, look, we use this kind of composite material because it is blah, blah. I really don't care. Is it going to cool my house or not? You know, I mean, sometimes you get down to that. So sometimes this is the same sort of thing where you bring it, it kind of gives you the credibility piece. So in that, you want to make sure that if it's printed, that it's printed well. You don't want to have it on a crappy laser printer or a crappy inkjet printer. Inkjet printers never look good doing presentations. I'm just telling you. So you want to have it, you know, well done. If you're in a hard spot and like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. Okay, take the PDF, bring it into the office, have them print it, bring in your own paper, because let's be honest, they're going to have the crappy copy paper in there, and I don't blame them because it's cheaper, but bring a higher grade paper. Usually runs you $8 to $10 for a ream of paper. And you can even go to CVS and pick it up there. But you look for the premium paper because that just, all of that quality will speak, okay? And this is, you would use that, the same approach when I do like a listing presentation, and I've come out guns a-blazing where I literally have this printed out. I have all my other stuff printed out. I've actually taken this one that's been designed, and I think I mentioned to a lot of people that this is the one that was designed for me, but then I asked the designers if I could strip out the personal information, and instead of my logos and name, I just put in Keller Williams Larchmont. So now anybody at Larchmont can use this, and yay. So that's the reason why coaching got this. The buyer guides and seller guides, kind of the similar idea. And then we also have the Altos RE analysis of any neighborhood, meaning zip code, or any city. And when I needed to come out on one appointment, like I said, guns blazing, I had all three of these things printed out, and I bound them all and put them in those sleeves that, you know, you staple it, but you hide the staples, and then it goes into a plastic sleeve, and then you clip it on the side, and I made sure everything was matching. And so then when I presented it, it's like, by the way, these are the things I will do, and we can go over that in a minute. If you're have any questions about currently selling in the current market, here's a guide for that, and we can easily go through that together. And by the way, if you also want to know the state of your market as of 10 p.m. last night, because that's when I printed this out, here is the state of the market for Huntington Beach. And so I gave that to them, and they never looked at any of it. Okay, but it gave a lot of credibility there. I also like to do it a little bit separately, because most of the time too, a lot of your guides, you'll notice when you're doing things together, everything may not look exactly alike. And if you, let's say you were to bind it all together, well, then that looks kind of weird. But if you have it separate, it kind of, you know, makes more sense. And clients don't care as much as you think about that when it comes to presenting that sort of thing. I was actually against another agent, by the way, who did a listing presentation, and I am not kidding. That thing was about 200 pages thick, about that thick, and it was bound. And it had a lot of fluff in there too, but it had a lot of that stuff in there. Well, one, because it was all in one thing, it was like, crap, do I really want to read that novel? And no, who wants to do that? Just tell me what I need to know. So that would be part of it. And then two, let's say he ever wanted to go back and reference something like, well, what are the neighborhood stats? Oh, I have to flip through all this stuff and find it. I had it broken down and simplified into the marketing, the listing presentation, into, well, if you're currently a seller, here's a guide that's telling you, what the current market is. And by the way, specifically for your specific market, what are the stats? And that's in another thing. So, that made it also easier when I did a presentation. So when I come into this, one thing is that people will say, oh, it's a listing presentation. I say, well, you know what? Sometimes you may even hear that this is a listing presentation, but it's really a marketing thing because anybody can list your home. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Anybody can take your home and put it on the MLS. Yay. But do they do it well? And that's the difference. Because if somebody puts it on the MLS, what is the marketing side of that? What is being described? People emotionally make decisions when they purchase a home. They walk in and they want to know, can they live here? Is this a place that they want to raise their kids in, or they want to live for the next 30 years, or they want to retire in, or any of those other questions that need to be answered? And that's a very personal thing and a very emotional thing. So when we market your home, we want to make sure that we are presenting it in the best light possible, because in doing so, it makes it the most attractive, and therefore we will get the best value, meaning the best offer in the amount of money and the terms that we can get for your home. So we're doing more than just listing your home. We are listing and marketing your home, and that's even more important. So let's go ahead and go on to the next page. And by the way, you'd be flipping the pages, obviously. You don't have to announce you're doing all this. The KW Concierge Service. This is something that is just with our office and our affiliated 11 other offices that we have with KW. And what this is we put together this special service because a lot of times people in their home, they need a number of things done that will get them the most value possible, but they don't have the funds on hand. So we created this service and partnered with a number of different vendors that will come in and do whatever you need to do to your home, that will present it in the best possible light. And then they end up getting paid at the close of escrow. So there's no money up front. By the way, all of the fees have been negotiated too. So they are making a little bit of a premium. And then at the same time, they discounted it because they know they're going to get more money in bulk. So it pretty much evens out. And they're recommended. We vetted out the vendors. So let's say you need staging done. I'll just go through a few of the things here. Deep cleaning, painting, landscaping, decluttering. We can have somebody come in and do all of that sort of thing and make sure that your home presents in the best way possible. And anything that we can go over and we may need to advise that may need to be done, we can go ahead and see what happens. Now, this is also handled separately. So I want to let you know, I don't get a cut of any of this stuff. This is I can put you in charge or in contact with these people, and then you can talk about what you want done. I can tell you the recommendations, but I also want you to have peace of mind knowing that I'm not getting anything out of this. This is just a service that we provide to you, so that way it allows you to get the best value. And of course, throughout any of this, please let me know if you have any questions. Now, here's a prime example of a before and after. You can see in the smaller photo, that's what it looked like before. And it was a lovely, lived-in home, but it didn't provide as much attraction as you can see what it was done after it was done. Everything was lightened up. It became more of something that would sell on today's market, along with the professional staging and so on. And speaking of staging, some of the staging that we can make sure is done, we can put you in touch with a number of people that do professional staging. Now, a really good stager will not look at your home and just put furniture in it. They will look at the home and know what is the style of home, and then what will help sell this particular home. What ways can we lay out the furniture? What kind of artwork? What kind of other things are laid out in the home that just make it more appealing? Because you want people to come in and have that vision of like, this is somewhere where I want to live. This is somewhere where I want to be. And the staging helps communicate that. A lot of times when people come into a home, and let's say it's not staged at all, they don't necessarily see where things fit. And I can give you an example, and this is when I'm getting a little personal in mine, but I can give you an example. For me, I really can look at a space and figure out what can fit there. My husband, on the other hand, is not that sort of a person. Now, at the same time, he can look at a menu and he can figure out how to cook a dish without even knowing what the ingredients are. That is not me. So we both have different gifts. But for me, I can look at a space and figure out how things will fit in there. But not everybody can do that. So the great thing about when you stage a home, it kind of opens that up. Also, I only know what I know. But sometimes I look at staging and I'll see something unique a stager does that opens the possibilities up even beyond what I may initially think. So that's a great thing about having a stager come in, because they help communicate that to somebody too. Studies have also shown that people get easily between a 5 to 10% higher return off of their staging than if they didn't stage it at all. So what that translates to is that you will get more money in offers that will end up happening because you staged your home, as opposed to all the rooms being vacant. You also want, now we call it high impact photography, because I can take my cell phone, you can take my cell phone, but I can tell you that doesn't communicate as well. Now, for instance, this particular picture is what we call a sunset picture. And the sunset picture, it's that unique twilight time of the day, and sometimes it's called twilight photography, where you get that unique glow. And most of the time, I'll try and do this with all the homes I sell, unless there's a reason why I don't want to do that. But it gives it that warm glow that makes it super attractive. And a photographer, when you have a trained photographer that photographs real estate, they have an eye that's trained for that. They know what actually communicates visually what the home looks like and what will sell in the home. And we make sure that is done correctly for you. And sometimes people will say at this point, well, who pays for this? Okay, when it comes to the staging, that is usually on the seller that pays for the staging. When it comes to photography, I'm usually the one that pays for the photographer, by the way. Some agents, and they're cheap, I'm just going to put it out there, will charge for photography. Again, I think they're cheap. But if you do like a typical, regular size home, my photographer charges me around $500, and that includes twilight photos. That also includes drone photography, so that way you can see what the layout of the home looks like according to the property layout, and also in ratio with the other properties. And it also includes a website, so you can automatically have a website set up. So then I go into GoDaddy, I buy a domain. So let's say this home is on North Point Street, and it's 1041 North Point Street. So I literally buy 1041 northpointstreet.com, and then that's the website I use, and I just make sure it gets redirected to the website that's set up with all the photos. That will allow then, and so when you're communicating in this part of the presentation, it's more than just photos. It's these high-end photos, and we can do all this other stuff with it too, that again markets your home. Because don't you think that if you're living at 1041 North Point Street and we have that as your website, don't you think that's really easy for people just to look up and immediately be able to tour your home visually and know if it's their home for them and create more interest that way? And see, you're putting in their minds like, yeah, this is something they really want. So that's why it's part of the presentation here. By the way, Alyssa, any questions you have? This is going to be recorded for everybody, but Alyssa's here. So any questions you have, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Same thing with the print media. The print media is all of our brochures and things that we have for the home. And I'll make sure it's adjusted accordingly to what the home should be. For instance, if there's a home that I sold recently that it was 6,500 square feet and it was really an estate, we had an 8-page brochure because we needed that many photos in there and that much description to fully communicate that home. But there's other homes too that I've done that have been a 4-page brochure. I've also had some clients ask me, no, I don't want anything that big. I literally just want a 2-page flyer. And I'll adjust it accordingly, but I make sure that everything's printed is of high quality and will reflect the quality of your home. And as I mentioned earlier, we will have a domain set up for you, and then that will also be able to communicate. And on the print media, the reason why it's here, we will have the domain on the print media as well. So then that way, when people even get a flyer, if they want more information it allows them to do it. It allows me to hand it out to potential buyers. It allows it to be in the box that's posted outside on the for sale sign, so people can pick that up. It allows the highest effective way to communicate and market your home to multiple potential buyers out there that can bring in multiple potential offers. Print marketing is pretty much the same thing. The print marketing part, if this is something that you want, we can do. The print marketing goes a little bit beyond that, where that we are mailing out, and that's usually what that entails. And that'd be postcards and flyers and so on. And usually that's not something that, when it comes to this sort of thing, I will do the flyers and so on. If we want to go out beyond that, then this is something we can talk. If we want that, you know, something where you and I can negotiate how we want to do that. If you have a whole list of people you want to go out there, I will let you know that the postage does start going up on this. And so that's why we need to, you know, if that's something that you really want, we can do, but it needs to be something that's effective, and we can look at that. Also, in all of this, you have to temper it with what kind of home are you selling and what's the commission on the home. I had once come in here, it was, well, and you're too young for this, Alyssa, but she's a rock star, Pat Benatar from the 80s. She, her real estate agent came in and spoke to us here at Keller Williams Larchmont. And he told us that his rule of thumb is 7% of your commission is what goes into marketing. So if you think about some of these homes that are estates, and they're, you know, let's say you're selling the home and it's going to be a $3 million, $4 million home, and you look at your commission of that, well, then you need to take that certain percentage. And then that may automatically be, yeah, you know what? I need to do the print marketing myself, because that client at that level is not, they do not expect that kind of service to be handled by themselves. They expect you to provide that service. But let's say you're looking at a home and the home is $600,000, and somebody says, yeah, I want the entire city, everybody getting a postcard. It's like, well, wait, that's going to run into thousands of dollars, and the commission isn't as high, you know, in that sort of setting. So then that's when you would have that conversation. You know what? I can go ahead and look into those numbers. I'll let you know that's not standard for the marketing that we do for your home. So we can look at what the cost would be and then talk about that later. Is that okay? Because then, you know, it kind of puts them on notice, like, guess what? You're flipping the bill for all of that mailing that's going to go out for your $600,000 home. Then you talk about technology-driven marketing. I mentioned earlier that the drone photography I do with my photographer, and that is, I pay for that, but I do want to let you know that the reason why we do that is when people get a bird's eye view from a drone of the property lines, then that really communicates to them what they're looking at on the home. And it's also a unique view that not everybody gets. So they really do appreciate that. And you can even say, you know, don't you feel like when you have a bird's eye view in any of this stuff, you can always ask a question. Don't you feel when you have a bird's eye view, it really is a unique look at something, almost like when you're in an airplane. Another one we do, and the Matterport does cost more and it is extra. Again, this is when you balance it out. If I'm selling a home that is, like I sold a condo that was $375,000. We didn't do Matterport and we didn't do a drone because the drone just shows the condo. So who cares? So I didn't do any of this, you know, sort of thing. When I sold that same year, I sold another home that went for $860,000. We did the drone, we did twilight, and we did beautiful photography, but their home was, they were a little bit like pack rats, and they cleaned up a lot, but still had a lot of stuff in it. And I didn't want to do the Matterport 3D because in photography and Matterport, every little detail shows up. So that's one where, again, I tempered it and I'm like, yep, nope, don't want to do it. So we never talked about Matterport. Again, in that same year, I sold another home last year that there was one in Highland Park, beautiful home, craftsman home, redone. We had it staged, and this is where full 9 yards, had it staged, did the full photography, did the twilight photos, did the drone photos, and did the Matterport 3D. And the Matterport 3D, and this is when you come to this part of it. By the way, the Matterport 3D, if your home, we want to do that with your home, that's where it virtually lets somebody walk through the home. Now they use a special camera and a special system, so they go ahead and stitch everything together. But when they do that, that allows anybody who's the buyer or anybody online, they can go ahead and just click and start walking through the home. And it puts everything in perspective. So they can see how the ratios work. They can see the perspective of the room. They can see how this room connects to another room, or they can go anywhere in that room and feel like they're standing or sitting in that room and what it's like to have that view from that particular spot. That's the value of having the Matterport 3D in there. And also, if we even get buyers that are out of the area, it allows them to preview your home ahead of time, not waste your time because they previewed their home. And then it even allows them to know if this is something that they want to make an offer on. And always, this is part of the marketing, and it always makes your home more attractive because it's even presented in a better professional manner. Of course, when we list your home, there's the internet marketing. Now, I'm going to be totally upfront with you. A lot of this stuff, anybody who lists a home on the MLS automatically goes to a lot of these websites. Yay for that. But again, all the marketing we talked about before, what's the quality that goes out there? Because that's going to be the key thing. When you look at a lot of these homes and they're marketed out there, if they're done on somebody's cell phone and they don't have a photography point of view, a photographer's point of view, and their description isn't that great, and all these other things combined, and it's lacking, and then you put that home against another home, and all of this quality we just talked about is done, it's going to be a big difference. And to the buyer, one is automatically going to be worth more, let's say everything was even, than the one that wasn't done as well. So we make sure, yes, your home goes on the internet, and yes, it's marketed that way, but we make sure that it's done in a really nice manner that sells your home and very professional. Because of that, we make sure that you get the best exposure when it comes to selling your home. It's the highest exposure possible. In fact, if you look, this is where you can have 750 plus sites, because this is how we make sure everything gets propagated out. You have 60 countries, so you have 60 million potential people. Now, obviously, they're all not going to be walking through your home, and I'm talking about potentials here. But the principle of the idea is we can get the maximum exposure for your home utilizing all of this. We also go ahead and put it on kw.com. Every KW property gets their own website, and we can set that up for you as well. It allows things to be searchable. I also, as I mentioned with my photographer, have a dedicated website. We try to make sure we cover every base for you. So that way it's the most amount of exposure that you can have for your home. And the more exposure, the better marketing, gets you the best offers that are coming in. We also make sure that it goes to social media, and everything put on social media is professionally done. So that way it's everybody out there that knows about me, they can see it. But also we can do paid ads, which makes sure it gets in front of even more people that are out there. And as you know, the ads can be targeted. And because we can target to potential buyers who are more likely to sell your home. Each property gets their own website. That's what I mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to highlight it separately here too. They get their own site that highlights the property in there. By the way, in this presentation, everybody gets access to it as a PDF. If you feel like, oh, I don't want to print all of this and include all of this, you don't have to. I just want to let you know. There are times I've taken this PDF, and when I've printed it out, I've thrown out pages because nope, don't need that page. Nope, don't need that page, because either it's redundant or it doesn't apply or something like that. So I'm not going to have it in there. But I am going through the entire PDF right now. So that way you guys just understand how to market every page. And some of it, if you think, hey, that's a little redundant, I get it. Take it out. Do what you feel needs to do so that you're comfortable with it. We're just going through the whole thing so you understand this. And of course, once we get all this stuff together, we want to talk about what's your timeline. So first of all, if we have to go through KW Concierge, we will do so. Now, if we're able to do this without KW Concierge, we still take step one and we make sure that we get the home ready. You know, we stage it, we landscape, we make sure the curb appeal is there. Anything that needs to be done, we get that ready for the home to go. Then in number two, we do all the photography. We do everything about the videos. We do all of that. And if you notice, we even have in there too a lifestyle video, because your home is more than just a box. Your home is a whole lifestyle. What have you done to the home? What is the home? What is the lifestyle your home is going to afford? Where is it located? What is the style of the home? What is the layout of the home? All of those things is a lifestyle somebody is buying into. So we make sure that gets communicated. We do the floor plan, if that's an option you have in there, and that's where we do the Matterport 3D. With the Matterport 3D, which I could have mentioned earlier, and I'll mention here, they do a floor plan as an option. So they actually give you a floor plan and people can see what the home looks like actually laid out as if you had the architectural plans. Then we do a listing launch, and that's where we go ahead and we set up all of the internet sites for that. We also want to do the signage, and that's where we put up a for sale sign. Now, I did have one client last year because, in fact, it was at High-End Home I was mentioning to you. She did not want a for sale sign up. She had no problem with her home going on the internet, but she didn't want looky-loo neighbors coming into her home. So sometimes you will get clients like that especially your higher end homes, they do not want a sign posted because they don't want everybody just traipsing through and just kind of being a looky-loo. But you can talk about the open house signs. And anything that needs to go with the signs, we will make sure that is put up. With that as well, we can also make sure we have a box for the flyers on there. And as I mentioned on the flyers, we'll have your website on there and all the information on there too. So if somebody picks up the flyer, they have access to all of the digital marketing that we have set up already to go. We'll also set up an email campaign so that way people know this home is coming on the market, that this home is available, and we can send it out there. By the way, I happen to use a service called zipflyer.com, and you can buy sections of neighborhoods and areas or all of Southern California. And I think all of Southern California, last time I paid for it was a little bit over $200. And literally it's supposed to have all the agents in Southern California. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but you can claim that at least. And those are some of the, as you guys are in business longer and longer, you're going to start to get emails all the time. Like, look, this just got listed. Oh, look, come to our open house. That's where that comes from. And so what you want to do is you can say, this is an option that we can do with an email campaign. Of course, it'll go out to my entire database and it'll go out to everybody in our office. But in addition, we can also talk about if you wanted to go beyond that. And again, that's where you kind of feel it out a little bit. I had one seller a number of years ago where he was so anxious and wound tight, and he kept on saying, well, I need the maximum amount of exposure. So I paid the $200 and I sent it out. And then as soon as I sent it out, I got the email myself because guess what? I'm on the list. And as soon as I got the email, I forwarded it to my client and said, by the way, here's the email that every agent in Southern California just got. And so that made him feel really good. When I did it recently for that home last year too, I automatically included it because again, her home, we sold it for 2.64 million. So looking at what my commission was, yes, a big part of my marketing budget meant that all of this stuff, I took care of myself. That wasn't on her at all. You know, I took care of all the digital stuff. I took care of all the print stuff. That's all on me because that eventually I'm getting compensated really well. So I'm not going to be cheap. Let's be honest. That's just the way it is. But what I did is when I did the email campaign, I sent it back to her and I said, by the way, Amelia, I just want to let you know, every realtor in Southern California just got this email about your house. And in the Zip Flyer, you can build it yourself. And a lot of these companies do that. You can build it yourself, or you can submit just a flyer and it'll work that way as well. Well, on my flyer, I had the website. So I even let her know, by the way, not only did everybody get this flyer, but also everybody now sees the website that they can go to and see all the things about your home, including the Matterport 3D tour and the floor plan and all the lovely photos, which then she was like, she felt really good because like, oh, okay, Rob's doing the most he can to get the most exposure for my home. The print campaign is a part that, I was mentioning. At a minimum, you want the flyers done, at a minimum. The digital campaign is the stuff too. I was mentioning the idea like the social media. The social media is really going to be the big one that, you're going to highlight, because you can let people know like, hey, it goes on my social media. It can go on my office's social media. And then we can also do paid campaigns through Instagram and Facebook and make sure that gets out there. Now you're like, how can I do that? Within Command, it's really easy to set up the campaign so you can do it like that, and then it goes out. So it's very simple in Command. Literally, if you already have the flyer digitally designed, you upload it, you click, 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 you give them a credit card, you pay like, I think it's $5 or $10 depending on what you want, and you're done. I mean, it's easy peasy. By the way, this this listing marketing presentation was done by Forward Marketing, which is part of the Forward Living, the groups I mentioned. That's the 12 offices that are all owned together. And Forward Marketing is the one who put that together. They can also do your flyers and your brochures and all of the other print stuff you need done. So, and literally you can, Google Forward Marketing or forwardmarketing.com, and it'll take you right to that. So just a little FYI, if you're like, well, wait, where do I go for all this stuff printed? I just told you. And then if you want to do events, of course, we can do an open house. And if you would like, we can do a broker's open. And a broker's open is when all of the real estate agents and the brokers in the area know about your home and they can come view it, but the public doesn't know. Now, just to let you know, sometimes the brokers will bring some of their clients to view the home, but it's not on the internet for everybody to know about. It's only about real estate agents know about it. So that way they get a preview of your home, and we can set that up. We can also do, and this is again, if it's a $380,000 condo, like the one I sold last year, I did not do a broker's open, and I didn't have food available, and I didn't make any special events because it didn't need to be, okay? But the other home, and it's kind of funny, within the same year, I had like two very different ends of the spectrum, but that other home, oh, I had a broker's open. Oh, you better believe I had a broker's open, and I had food catered, and I had things set up, and I had my brochures there, and I had all the bells and whistles. So we had 3 hours of like people coming through and like wined and dined. Well, we didn't have wine, but we had, they dined and they got to view the place, and they got brochures and they got blah, 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 and so on. And that was even more than a broker's open. That was like a special event broker's open, because everything that I went through with that together. So that's how this would break down. And this would be the sort of thing like, let's say you're like, wow, Rob, we just went, 40 minutes and I don't know if they want to sit that long. Well, then you can skim through some of this and jump right to this page, because this will kind of walk you through everything as you see in order. Then we want to talk too about, of course, when you're marketing a home, the pricing. And what you want to do is you want to attract the right buyers at the best price, and you want to make the best offer. Now, let's say we know your home is going to be a certain amount. If we list a home right at that amount, we'll get a lot of offers. Now, in this market, by the way, you will, period. But if we go a little bit below that, and I know that hurts a little bit when we say that, but it actually is more attractive, and you have more people that want to make offers, and then they compete. And what do you think that competition looks like? Ask a few questions along the way. They know or they don't know. Let's just say they don't know. So then you can say, well, let me tell you, well, this is what it does look like. If you have people competing and they know they're competing with another offer, and now both of them have offered, they're going to start to beat one another. And they're going to do that in one of two ways. They're going to either offer you more money, or they're going to give you better terms. Like they're going to drop an appraisal contingency, or they're going to drop the inspection contingency, or they know they're not going to ask for more money, or they're going to do all of these things. You don't know, but that's why you want the things to go ahead and do that. So if you notice, that's why we have the pyramid here of the people looking at the home. And so if you go just a little bit below, you'll have more people looking at the home, And then you have more people that will be attracted to it and want to make those offers. And they get a little bit of a frenzy. And that's what you want, because then you get the people that will ask for the best value. Also, once we get into transaction, if you happen to know that your home is in escrow, but you have 3 other people that wanted that home, those current buyers are not going to be as picky when it comes to the inspections and the repairs, because they know if they ask for too much, then you can drop them and just say, or you can just say no. Sorry, you can't drop them out of the contract. You can say no. If they choose to drop, they know you have 3 other people to go back to. So it's up to them how much they're going to ask for. And if you say yes, no, or you negotiate, what are they going to come back as? But it makes that so much easier by making your home more marketable. Also, I want to let you know that if let's say your home is worth $800,000, we want to put it at $799 or $789. We really make it a hot home, because that also, when people do searches, they do it in blocks. So they'll do a search from like $600,000 to $800,000. So on some people's searches, if we list your home at $800,000, we don't show up on their search, even though it's technically within their price range. So if you do the $799 or the $789, which creates the buying frenzy, then it will go ahead and it will be within their search range. By the way, let me qualify that. Where it should create the buying frenzy. You can never guarantee what the market will do for one of your clients, but you can tell them that what we have seen is that by marketing it below, a little bit below like their price, again, if it's worth 800 and you're marketing it at 789, then you're going to have a lot of people jump on that and want that home if the home is truly worth 800,000. Pricing misconceptions. The value of your property, and this is really good, the way they word it, is determined by what a buyer is willing to pay and what the seller is willing to accept in today's market. They will base their property decisions based on other properties in the area. And many times your first offer is one of your best offers to consider. So we want to look at, unless you know, like, let's say again, you know, like the home is worth 800,000. We put it at 789. We do a coming soon. And then we're already having a ton of people call up and we're getting a few offers already. Understand there's a big difference between talk and somebody sending you an offer. All of us as listing agents can tell you we've heard a lot of talk, but until they actually sign a contract and send that offer over, it doesn't mean as much. Okay. So you want to know, like what is actually in hand. But if somebody thinks, and I have this happen a lot, my home is worth, and let's say it's really worth 800,000. Well, we put in these upgrades and it's worth 850,000. Okay. And again, that home I sold last year for 860, they thought their home was worth more. So initially we said, and if everything goes well in this conversation, you never even get to this point. So if everything goes well, you talk about, hey, this is what these are the misconceptions people have. It's really what a buyer's willing to do. So people will say, well, I remember I paid this. Okay, that's not the current market. That's only what you paid at that time or what you paid for something else. Okay. Another agent told me this. Doesn't matter, because the other agent may also be trying to get the listing. And they may be not telling you the truth. And then later on, they'll beat you up on the price. You may say, oh, I want this. And that's the case that I was going into with my client, saying that they thought their home was worth $880,000. Well, my neighbor says I should be getting this. Again, your neighbor, are they buying the home? If they're not buying the home, then their opinion doesn't matter as much. Well, I need to clear this amount of money so we can move here. Okay, that's what you need. That doesn't speak to what the market currently is and what the buyer is willing to pay for your market. And sometimes you hear, well, if you were to build this whole place all over again, it would cost this much. That's a lovely thought, but again, it's not the same thing. So that's just, the way it is. Going back to what my client had done, they had said, well, this is what we want for our home. Okay. And I knew, I was also good friends with them. So I knew it was not going to be a conversation that would go easily where I could say, hey, but your home actually isn't worth that much. So this is a conversation. And here's a tip. If you get to this point and they're locked into, and this kind of goes into the rest of it too. You kind of get a feel of where people are at. You can talk more about the right price is important. And again, you may feel like, okay, this is too much talk. And so you may get rid of this and keep this. You still are having the same conversation. And then you're done. So either way, you have those 2 pages, but let's say you only keep one of these pages, or you can have both in there and you skip one. I don't care. Do what you need to do. But in this particular case with my client, I said, okay. And then when I first started in real estate, this is what somebody had given me as advice. Listen, this is how much I feel your home should go for. But I understand you want to ask for, in this case, they were asking for $879. I understand this is what you want to do. So let's do this. We'll put it on at $879. And I'm going to go with what you feel it should be. However, if we don't have any serious offers within the next 2 weeks, can we agree that we need to revisit the marketing, which is the price on this, and then the market speaking to us? And it's not my opinion. It's not your opinion. It's literally the market is telling us that that's not the price that we need to be looking at. However, you could be totally right, and we'll give the $879 a shot and we'll see what happens. They were like, okay. And then I asked, is that fair to give it 2 weeks? And they were like, sure, that's fine. A week and a half later, they said, Rob, it was a Sunday. Rob, can you come over, and bring a bottle of wine and we'll just have a little talk. I said, okay. So I came over with a bottle of wine. I opened it up and I started pouring, and they said, we're overpriced, aren't we? I never had to have the conversation because I already put it in their brain. Guys, look, this is how much I think it should go for. You think it's worth this much. And that happens a lot. That happened to me 3 times last year. So I said, listen, if we don't get any serious offers within 2 weeks, let's revisit the price. And by the way, I did say this to them too. I'm not saying that we have to reduce the price. Let's just revisit what the current market is in the next 2 weeks and see where we're at. But it does put in their mind the idea that, well, if we're overpriced, then 2 weeks should tell us what, especially in this market, should tell us, do we need to adjust something? Now, I did have a home in Highland Park that we had to have that conversation. And they said, and I'd let them know, and this is how it goes too. You're looking at averages whenever you're looking at the market. So let's say the average in an area, the average home is $800,000. And the average home takes 17 days to enter escrow in that market. That's all averages. Well, what if you have a home that's worth 1.2 million in that same neighborhood? And it really is worth 1.2 million because it has views and it has blah, 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 and all these other things involved, okay? Then, okay, great, except you're at the high end. So now if you're looking at the average, you're not average because you're not average price. So because of that, you're going to have to expect for it to take longer for your home to sell. Is that fair? And that's part of when I've done my listing presentation, I've had that conversation with people. That's why you want to do some research, obviously, about the neighborhood ahead of time. And when it came to this home that I sold in Highland Park, we were asking 1.5 million for the home. 1.4888 was the actual price. And most of the homes in that neighborhood were selling for 1 to 1.2 in that immediately little area with this amount of square footage and blah, blah, blah. Our home really was worth that. I will say it was, but I let them know, guys, we're at the high end. So it took us, I think we were on the market for 21 days. And then we went into escrow. And at the time, the average was 13, I think, for that neighborhood at that time. So yes, but I once we started hitting the 2 week period, they were panicking. So I said, hey, let's get on a three-way call and let's have a conversation. I have no problem with this, so, and also right before we got on the call, like the day before, I sent them the current market stats. So they got the whole stats of like the average selling days and blah, blah, blah. So when we got on the call, I said, hey, hi, Bennett. Hi, Lily. This is, I know we've been on the market now and we're approaching 2 weeks. Just want to let you know, we are on the high end of the market and the average is 13 days for the market right now. So we're right at that average, but our price point is above, and we should be there, but our price point is above. And they said, yeah, we looked at the stats and everything. Okay, we're not panicking anymore. We're fine. Let's keep it on the market at this price for at least another week. Okay, 21 days hit. We entered escrow. We had an offer, we negotiated, we entered escrow, and then boom. So that's the conversation that you had. I had another home in Downey. I told them the same thing, that at the time, this was 4 years ago, we were at 1.2 million and we were one of the highest priced homes in that area, but the home was spectacular. And it was actually worth that amount of money because there was 2 other homes in that area that were going for, one was 1.4 million and it was just a dump. The guy, and it's one of those, he thought the home was worth a lot more. Guess what? He never sold it. And there was another home that was selling for like 1.1 million. And it was a great home, but it wasn't as nice as ours. So ours really did, like the 1.2 did make a lot of sense. But I had to tell my client because he kept panicking. He was like, why aren't we selling it yet? And he was panicking because he's having to make mortgage payments. And I said, look, we are at the higher end of the market right now. And I did have that same conversation at the very beginning. And I said, look, I have no problem listing it for the high end of the price, as long as it's reasonable. If we would have gone to 1.3 and a 1.2, no, that's not reasonable. We never would have gotten an offer. We were at 1.2, which is where we should have been, but we're also at the high end. So you have to adjust your expectations. So basically I had that same conversation over and over again with him, and he was okay with it. We actually waited, I think it was 45 days, and we finally went into escrow. So it was a lot of open houses, it was a lot of showings. The home was vacant, so I pimped it out as much as I could. But it was the kind of thing where it's like, that's what it took to sell the home. So when you're doing all this listing presentation, you're also putting some of that in there, some of the expectations, because that's what you're doing. You're talking about, listen, this is how we market your home, and these are the expectations to have. And sometimes you'll get a client, well, how much do you think it's worth? You tell them, okay, let's sell it for that. But a lot of times you have very smart clients that'll tell you, well, how much do you think it's worth? Well, your home, I looked at all the data. It should be worth, and sometimes I'll give a range, sometimes, and this is what I do too, is I package it. Let's say the home is worth 800,000. I am not going to give a range of 790 to 810, because then they want 810. And it's like, no. I will say, if it's worth 800, I say, in your area, the homes like this are worth between around 785 to 800,000. And your home is, really fits at 800,000. However, I think it would be best if we marketed it a little bit below that for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And that way we get a number of buyers competing for your home. Does that make sense to you? And it's like they could agree or they could not agree. Even if they disagree, like I mentioned to you, I had that one client as last year where they had their feet stuck in. They wanted 879. I was like, okay, I get that, and we can go with that. And I have no problem moving forward, as long as we make sure, let's revisit this in 2 weeks and see if our marketing is what our marketing is really being treated well in the current market. What is the market telling us? What is the market speaking to us? And if we don't get any serious offers within that time, let's just come back and visit it. Is that fair? And they were like, yes. And like I said, a week and a half later, we're pouring wine and they're like, we need to lower the price, don't we? I said, yeah, actually. And I still didn't own that decision. It wasn't a me versus them, because that's one thing that can happen is I said, yeah, the market's speaking to us and it's telling us we're overpriced. We actually closed escrow at 859,000 on that same home. And we gave no repairs on that home, and it needed a lot of work. But that's how we were able to do it. So then after this, you have, hey, I'm committed to your success. This is just kind of like a filler page. So want to let you know too, let's say you're printing back to back and, for whatever reason, you can single side is fine, but let's say you're printing back to back. Think of this page as one you can keep in there or throw it out, depending if you deleted other pages. So that way you make sure everything ends up even, because then at the end, this is the back. And so that way the back looks just like the front. So that's the listing presentation. And that's how you would walk through somebody through all these parts. And again, right now, I literally took almost underneath an hour to go through all this. I realized I explained a lot of this too, but I'm also speaking fast because I'm drinking coffee, and you may go into more information than other parts than me. So that means that if you need to skip a few pages, you can. That means if you want to just highlight a few things, you can. If you want to delete a few pages, you can, because the attention span of most people has shortened. And so you want to make sure you're not talking their ear off. And one thing a lot of people will say is, what's the price? And if you come in and you were like, I don't want to talk about that yet, let's talk about it at the end, you've already turned them off. So you want to make sure that your presentation is short. You want to make sure it's convenient. And if somebody comes in and they say, hey, what is the price? Then I may even say, well, you know what? The range I see in the price is between $785,000 and $800,000. And if that's good enough, can I talk about that a little bit later? And I promise it won't be long. And they'll say yes or no. It's like, no, I want to talk about it now. Okay, great. And then basically you don't follow through this, you go directly to the end. You skip and you go through and, hey, blah, 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 this is the price. This is why we want to do it. Do you mind if I talk to you about some of the marketing I'm going to do? They may say yes, or they may say no. Some people, again, I had my client that my first listing ever, she called me up and she said, hey, Rob, because I've known this woman for years, she's like, we need to sell our mom's home and we know you won't F us over. So can you bring over the listing contract? I never went through any of this stuff. She just trusted me. She said, Rob, I know you're going to do everything you need to do. So you're going to gauge this to your client. When I had a client, I mentioned that I brought 3 pieces of collateral. I had this, I had my seller guide, and I had the market stats for a Huntington Beach home. He never looked at any of this stuff. It was just all there, and it gave me credibility. And he and I talked. I had the contract with me, and I made sure he signed the contract before I left, because he was a referral from a best friend. So I didn't know this guy personally. I'm like, no, I'm going to make sure you sign this before I leave. But then I've had somebody, this was 2 years ago, where I didn't know these people. It was a referral. And I pretty much walked through this entire listing presentation. Now, I didn't walk through the seller's guide. I gave that to them separately. And I didn't walk them through the market stats. I gave them that separately. But this, I walked through almost the entire thing, because I kind of had to pull out all the stops and explain everything that I was doing. And they wanted to know everything. He was an engineer. So he didn't mind the fact that it took us 30 minutes to go through this. He wanted to know every single thing I was doing. So you got to gauge it according to your client. But this is the long-winded way of going through this whole presentation. Now, Alyssa, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions, but thank you. That was really helpful.
Good.
For the photography when you're talking about that, would that usually include the virtual tour as well, or would there be like a separate vendor that you reach out to for that?
Most of your photographers, at least the one I use, he does both.
Okay.
And so, and what you'll do is that if you're going to be doing the virtual tour, by the way, really good question. If you're going to be doing the virtual tour, it's just best to have the same photographer do both the photography and the virtual tour, because the last thing you want is 2 different people coming out and taking photos of the home. You want to do all the photos at the same time.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then for finding like the photographer or like the vendors.
And let me add one little thing. Some things in regular photography can be retouched out. Like, let's say somebody leaves a sponge on the kitchen sink. Okay, I can retouch that out in Photoshop in the regular photos, but in the Matterport 3D, it's there. There is no retouching it out. So that's when you can let your clients know, listen, this stuff I can it can get fixed if you leave a towel out or something, but in the Matterport 3D, it is there permanently. There's no way to edit it. So just FYI.
Okay, cool. And then for finding like the photographer, is there like a vendor list that is like all of the people in the office generally use, or because
Yes.
I know there's a link in the email, but for whatever reason, I think the link might be broken and isn't quite working. So I don't have access to that at the moment.
Okay. There is a vendor list, and you can always ask. And then sometimes too, you can always just ask like who you know you use. Mine is and I think their website is still the same. So I'll just even look it up. Nope, they changed it. Let's see. Because now I'm just used to texting them all the time. And they're really good. They're 360gola@gmail.com. And in fact, excellent question, because I can do this and I can bingo, now you should see it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And those are the people I contact, and they set it up. The actual photographer is Michael, and really good guy, really, and he's got an excellent eye. That's why I really like using him. He's also very non-picky and flexible. There was one time, in fact, that Craftsman home last year I mentioned, when he came and did the photography, it was cloudy that day, and that entire week was supposed to be cloudy. And the
Ooh.
twilight photos and the outside, everything was going to look just dingy, you know? And yes, we can do miracles in Photoshop, but there's only so much you can do. And he looked up and he said, look, tomorrow the clouds are clearing for the rest of the day at 1 p.m. And then the rest of the week it's cloudy. But he goes, I looked at my schedule and I can be here around 1:30 tomorrow, you know, if that works for you. I go, dude, whatever you need to do. So he packed up, he saw his other people that day. And the next day he came back and he took the photos that would really show that home well. So I really like working with them. And I don't get a cut, you know, from any of that, just FYI. It's just they're a really good vendor. So that's who I like to work with. And a few people in our office, I know Dragonut and Star has worked with them as well, and they really love them too. But when you find a really good photographer too, when you find a really good vendor, you want to keep working with them because it's a very reciprocal type of business. And like I said, Michael, because he knows me, he's really worked with me, and he's flexible on things. And then same thing, I'm recommending him to everybody I know.
Yeah. Cool. That answered my questions then.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for suggesting this too. It was really, as soon as you sent me the email saying, let's go through the listing presentation, I was like, bingo, that sounds like a great idea. So thank you. And that's it. I'm going to sign off.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.